Adobe Illustrator has updated their 3D tool features, and with them, you can create some pretty cool graphics. Let's take a look at how to use these new features. So to begin with, we're just going to be looking at some of the basic shapes in Illustrator that I've created here, and how we can use the 3D tools to experiment and play around with the new features. So to start with, to find the new features, click on Effect in the top toolbar, then 3D and Materials, and then click on Materials. You can also click on Inflate, Rotate, Revolve. Any of these here will bring up the new 3D tool menu. As you can see, I selected Inflate, and immediately it creates a nice spherical looking object. This is because of the shadow that's applied to it. And as you'll see, we'll look at the lighting and the materials in the next steps. Both lighting and materials can play a big part in how your 3D object ends up looking. So with the presets, with lighting, as you can see, it comes with standard lighting, diffuse lighting, lighting that comes from the top left, and lighting that comes from the right. You can also increase or decrease the intensity of the lighting, the rotation of the light, you can choose that yourself, the height of the light, and the softness as well. As you can see, there's also a feature called Ambient Light, and depending on the intensity, it determines how much of the sphere is hit by the light source. There's also a shadow feature you can switch on, and to begin with, it might look like the shadow is cut in by a bounding box, and just to remove that, simply increase the shadow bounds, and that way you'll be able to see the full extent of the shadow. And obviously then you can alter the distance the shadow travels from the object. When it comes to materials, you have your base material that you start with. You can change the roughness of this, increase the metal effect or decrease the metal effect, and sort of come up with your own material. But there is actually a lot of presets that are worth exploring too. These can look really cool. Depending on the shape you're using, will depend on how well the presets work. But we'll have a look at some of those and applying them to the sphere and some of the objects going forward. You can also change the resolution of these materials. I would probably recommend just sticking with 1024, as I do here. But yeah, play around and see what you think. You can also change the color of the materials to pretty much anything you want. Certain colors might not work so well with certain materials, so again, that's just something you might want to play with. Obviously gold leaf, you're probably going to want to keep that gold. But with marble, as you can see here, altering the color can have some pretty cool effects. And even when it comes to the base default material, you can make it look really nice. I increased the metallic texture, reduced the roughness, and played around with the colors. And you can make it look quite nice, smooth, shiny, spherical still, depending on where the shadow hits and how intense the shadow is. You'll see in a minute as well that I experiment with the ray trace feature. Now with the ray trace feature, it comes with a few different options. So first off, you just want to switch it on and then decide on your quality. I usually go with medium. It's just the one I'm happiest using, but when you are going through your options, it's worth just trying out the different qualities and seeing what works best. I do not select render as a vector, but then you just want to select render afterwards, and you'll see the effect applied to the sphere here. I think the lighting works really well in this case, even without the ray tracing, but with the ray tracing, you can see it just helps make it look a little bit more natural, and you can see the light source is a little bit more pinpointed and dispersed, almost as if there's an actual light shining on the sphere, on the ball. You'll notice I use the Inflate feature quite a lot. Now, if you're looking to create a cube, I would definitely recommend using the Extrude tool over the Inflate tool. But just to show you here, when you use the Inflate tool, especially to begin with a high volume, you can almost create pillows or even like fun little keycaps. Reducing the volume allows it to look like more like a flat cube, and then you can increase the depth to flesh out the cube. But again, I would highly recommend using the Extrude tool if it's just a cube that you want. And lastly here, I'm just going to, as a basic shape, show you how like a little donut shape can be used, turned into almost like a 3D wheel. Apply a texture to it again, and show how the lighting can really make it pop, and also complement the texture itself. So shapes aren't the only thing that you can apply this effect to. You can also apply it to text. And not just outline text, you can also apply it to live text. Personally, I prefer to apply it to outline text. I think it works a little smoother. And as you'll see a little bit later, sometimes altering the live text after the effects have been applied is a bit of a slow and arduous process. However, I do think it's quite cool that that is a feature and that you are able to edit the text later down the line if that's something you think you're likely to do. So let's have a look and see what we can create. And this in particular is what I meant when I said changing the text can be a bit of a slow process. Because using these features uses a certain amount of processing power, it does mean that your computer might need a little bit of time to catch up once you start making these edits. Especially as you can see here, I activated the ray trace feature, which is just going to make it take even longer. It could be classed as a con, but I think there are more pros than cons to these new features. And it's nothing massive, and it's nothing that can't be worked around, but it's just worth keeping in mind. So now we've seen how these new features can be applied to some basic shapes, and we've seen how the features can be applied to text, live or outlined. Now I'm going to have a look and see what I can come up with by combining both. So I'll make a start on this, and let's see what I can come up with. And as you can see, what this is actually ended up being the thumbnail to this video. I was really happy with the results. It took a little bit of playing around, as you would expect, and I would encourage that with new features, just testing boundaries and seeing what you can come up with, what you can create. And this is what I settled on in the end. Feel free to let me know what you think of these new features in the comments, guys. I hope you found the overview helpful. If you did, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, guys, stay creative.